diving into one of the weirdest, stickiest, and most what in the actual hell disasters in American history. This is the story of the day Boston was attacked by a tsunami of molasses. Let's start with the villain of this story. A giant steel molasses tank owned by the Purity Distilling Company. This monstrosity was 50 feet tall, 90 feet wide, and held over 2 million gallons of molasses, basically the world's largest diabetes time bomb. But here's the fun part. The tank was built fast, built cheap, and tested with the same level of care you'd expect from someone microwaving leftovers at 3 a.m. They didn't even fill it with water to see if it leaked. Instead, they filled it with molasses immediately and said if it leaks, we'll just paint it brown so nobody sees. And they did. They literally painted the tank brown to hide the leaks.
My genius is... it's almost frightening.
They used Deadpool logic. This is the level of safety we're dealing with. January 1919. Boston is freezing, but the company had rushed in a fresh batch of warm molasses from the Caribbean because nothing says efficiency like pumping hot sugary sludge into a cold metal tank. The sudden temperature shift made the metal expand, contract, twist. Basically, the tank was screaming, "I am not built for this." People in the neighborhood often heard strange groaning noises from the tank. Kids even collected molasses from the ground because it leaked so much. This was not subtle. This tank had all the structural integrity of wet cardboard. Then came January 15th, 1919, the day Boston discovered its greatest enemy was dessert topping. At around 12:40 p.m., the tank finally gave up on life. Witnesses described a sound like a machine gun. Metal rivets shot out like bullets. Then the entire tank exploded, releasing 2 million gallons of molasses. What followed was not a cute, sticky mess. It was a 25-foot wall of boiling molasses barreling down the street at 35 miles per hour, fast enough to outrun horses, smash buildings, and ruin everyone's day. Imagine a tsunami. If the ocean was made of caramel glue, the wave instantly crushed everything in its path. Buildings ripped from foundations, freight train cars crushed like toys, horses drowned in syrup, people trapped, suffocating, stuck, swept away. In total, 21 people died, 150 were injured. Not exactly the headline you expect, mass casualties as sticky blob attacks city. Rescue workers described the scene as a giant brown nightmare. One firefighter was thrown into a wall and buried alive under a river of molasses. Another man was swept nearly 100 feet and found literally glued to a fence. People couldn't run. They couldn't move. Molasses is thick. It pulls you down, sticks you in place, suffocates you. It turns out the worst way to die might actually be dessert-related. The cleanup was a nightmare. Molasses stuck to everything. Buildings, streets, people, the harbor. The entire Boston waterfront became a gigantic sticky trap. Firemen used salt water to try to break down the sugar. It helped, slightly. But the molasses washed into the harbor and stayed there for months. For decades afterward, locals swore the area smelled like molasses every time the weather got warm. And because cleanup crews tracked it everywhere, Boston was sticky. Everywhere. For years. Imagine living in a city permanently coated in pancake topping. Naturally, Purity Distilling tried to blame anarchists. No, we didn't build a garbage tank that leaked like a colander. Clearly, radical saboteurs blew up our syrup. Investigators looked at the tank and said, "Mate, it fell apart like a tin can. Calm down." After a massive lawsuit, the company was found liable for pure negligence. They paid victims the equivalent of $100 million in today's money. More importantly, the disaster forced the U.S. to create new building codes and safety standards, because apparently before 1919, the rule was, if it doesn't explode immediately, good enough. The Great Molasses Flood exposed how dangerous industrial shortcuts can be. All it takes was management to give no fucks to create a disaster so ridiculous that if you saw it in a movie, you'd say, "Nah, that's too stupid. Rewrite it." It's something you'd see in a low-budget indie movie with crap CGI. But it happened. It was deadly. It's a story that proves one very important lesson. If you cut corners, eventually, you'll drown in molasses. Yeah.